I got Marcus Bazan with me today with Equity Consultant Pros. What's up, Marcus?
What's up?
Hey, man. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, man.
So I wanted to start with your story, which is it's really funny, your career, because we started about the same time, right?
Yeah.
At Almond Valley Realty, but let's start a little. Yeah, ABR. Yeah, that was a good times. let's go back a little bit though. Before you started real estate, Marcus, what were you doing? What led you into real estate?
You already know.
I already know.
Before doing real estate, so you want to start with the very beginning?
I want to hear your story of how this all kind of led to start.
Yeah, so my brother was kind of my biggest mentor. I was going to junior high, got kicked out, too many suspensions, kind of a troublemaker, and I was going to independent study. And my older brother, he's always had it. My dad worked for Microsoft and worked for all these big companies, and he had his own computer. He had his own computer startup where he was selling computers and hard drives and stuff. So my older brother kind of took from that, and when my parents split up, my older brother started his own entrepreneurship journey. He was like selling, what was it? He was putting on like Microsoft Office onto computers, pirated software. So he was doing all the pirated software, and he was
burning CDs.
Burning CDs. He was flashing Xbox 360s so they could play burned CDs on games. So he was doing all of that on Craigslist, and then he started using my mom's social security. I mean, I might not even should be sharing this, but he started trading stocks at 17. So he started trading, he traded Vonage stocks, Ameritrade, but he was like 16, 17. So he always had that sort of spirit of entrepreneurship. And then it came the time where me and him were I was about 16, he was about 17, 18. And he asked me, hey, I'm getting into cell phones, repairing phones, flashing phones. And he's like, I want you to be there with me. Can you work with me? And I said, sure. Because he's like, I was going to school. I was applying at McDonald's and Jack in the Box, any fast food restaurant. And so he's like, instead of you working at a fast food, why don't you just come work with me? And so he's like, you can make more money. So we started doing that, just like flipping phones. We would go drive to Ripon from Modesto, meet someone, buy an iPhone 3G. We would flip that, and then we started flashing phones. And so we called it Capital Wireless. That's what he wanted to call it.
Yeah, I remember.
So we had stores on Crow's Landing Road in Modesto, which is like, if you don't know Modesto, it's like a really ghetto area. Well, not ghetto, but I mean, we grew up there. I don't speak Spanish, but everyone there spoke Spanish.
You knew the lingo though. You knew how to.
The only things I knew growing up in Spanish were like aquí, which is here, because I was a forward playing soccer. Aquí and acá, which is over there, over here. But anyways, we had a cell phone store right next to Jessica's Taqueria, which was like tons of foot traffic. My dad helped us get started with that, and then we built up a couple more stores, and I don't want to get into all of that, but we went through a lot of crazy stuff. We got like robbed, employees stole from us, my brother fell in love with a few employees, so I won't go into all of it, but I learned a lot.
I mean, but did you think, was it there that you figured like, man, I can do sales, or were you still like, man, this isn't really work, like this isn't work operating for me?
I was kind of in my shell. So he was kind of the one that talked with the customers, and I didn't like conflict. I didn't like talking to people. I was really scared, and he was the one that got me. And I was kind of an asshole, to be honest. Like, I think the biggest thing was when we had employees, and I would just look over the shoulder, micromanage them, and if they made a mistake, like gave a customer a phone without them paying, lost us money, or made a mistake in any way, shape, or form, I made sure they knew it. I'm like, I would just be an asshole. And my brother would be like, dude, you need to stop. Like, he would get in front of my face. We had a lot of bumping heads. He was kind of the Howard Schultz, Warren Buffett, like all of those entrepreneurs was what he wanted. He wanted to start getting into customized phone cases based off your Instagram picture. So he was one of the first that wanted to start doing that in the flea markets. And so I was more conservative. He was more driven. And we kind of balanced each other out. And so we got robbed a few times. We had to start over from scratch. I had one of our cars, because our house would get targeted for like robbery. My grandma's house we were renting. And so a few times we would leave every night we would pack up our stuff at the shop, because it was a taqueria. It was open till like midnight. We closed at 9. We would work from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. So 13-hour days. And I had all of our laptops, customers' phones, our phones, everything, all the inventory in a car. We were flipping cars. And it was a Honda Prelude.
I always forget the car story too.
That's another thing. We would go to all the tow yards, and we would get these cars on lien sales and flip them on Craigslist.
Yeah.
So Craigslist was like our hub. And so we flip phones, flip cars, and I had all of our stuff. I left the steering wheel in the car because it detached. Somebody stole the car, stole all the merchandise, stole all of our stuff. The next morning we saw the car was gone.
Oh, goddamn.
And they had it in Patterson stripped, and all of the stuff was gone. No insurance, we're kids.
Yeah.
And we had to start over again. So we had really a lot of learning lessons. And my brother got arrested. He wanted to be a drug dealer. He wanted to be
the man was the definition of an entrepreneur at that point, basically. The man wanted to do everything. See what kicked. See what worked.
Well, it's kind of like how I am with my businesses.
No, 100%.
It's similar to him.
This is starting to put a lot of strings together for me in this situation. So let's go into the first image then, because this is where it gets interesting for me. So I'm going to show you an image, and you're going to tell me where this place is and basically the story behind it. All right?
Okay. Safeway. So I don't know if they can see on the camera, but it's the Safeway Distribution Center. That's a place I worked. I worked at Tracy when I first got into real estate, got my license. That's where I met Alberto at Almond Valley Realty. And I think you weren't even there. You came back. You went to Almond Valley, took a break, and you came back. And I was already doing the trainings every Monday.
So I had showed up, and then I just couldn't get it started. I couldn't get rolling with it. You know, things were just happening at the time for me. And when I got back into it, that's when I met you finally.
Yeah.
But you were working at Safeway Tracy. Right?
I was working there. It's good pay, good benefits. I was a terrible employee. We were just talking about that before the interview. Man, I was stealing merchandise. I mean, they let me go, rightfully so. I was, taking extra breaks without, authorization. Stole some merchandise. So I had to kind of clean up that part of it, but they ended up catching on to it and they let me go. So I was in real estate with no job, had like $4,000 in my bank account, apartment.
I'll never forget the day. It's
the bridges were burned.
No, you walk in, and you were like, just got fired, and I just got a new apartment.
I just got my apartment. My Honda.
Yeah, you just got it too. You had just gotten it. You're like, I don't know. I don't know what to do. And it was in that moment though, Marcus, where that's my turning point in my mind for you, where it's like, that's where it all changed, where it's like, you had to just commit 100%. In my world, that was the best, that's why I always joke with you about it, but that's the best thing probably for you at least, that could have happened to you. It forced you into real estate. I'll never forget. Next days, bro, you're there punching away, trying to figure this out. You were just going at it, and I'm just watching you like, God damn. And you're trying everything. You're making these lists. You're cold calling like a machine, and I'll never forget. That was the day that I was like, oh fuck. So before that stuff, we would do the. I remember when we would do the fake. Not the mock like interviews, like I'm selling, you're buying, you're the agent, you're representing. And I'll be honest with you, I think I've told you this before, man, I thought you were fucking horrible. You would talk yourself out of a deal. I'm like, man, this guy, I remember telling myself one time, this guy ain't gonna make it. This guy just cannot get out of his own way in talking. I'm like, dude, you got the deal, just stop. So to see that, and then when you, like I said, when Safeway Tracy happened, man, you just locked in. Yeah. It was one of the craziest things for me to see how it just forced you. It just forced you into this. So what was your mind like in that scenario, dude?
Survival. I think that's part of it, like a lot of people that get into real estate, usually they're working another job, just like me at that time. And so they don't want to take the full leap into real estate because they like the security of what an hourly job pays. And so with a job, whether you're somebody that lost a job like me or you purposely jumped into real estate full time, I think that takes a lot of courage, but it also takes a lot of fear. Because I had $4,000 in my bank account. I had a new apartment. My girlfriend had just moved in with me, which later turned out to be my son's mother. And I was just kind of like, I was scared. And so being scared and then saying, okay, well, I have to make this work. I got to make this work. And don't get me wrong, I was applying for jobs. I remember going down to Atwater, and I applied with like 300 other guys for like a plant job or some kind of a city job. Yeah. And I remember driving there. all these guys that looked like they fit the job. I didn't know anything about what construction or anything.
Yeah.
I didn't get the job. So I was getting job interviews and trying to find a job, but it just never worked out. And all the while, when I was not going for job interviews, I was hammering those phones. I remember going to Starbucks.
Oh, I remember.
And I would get the newspaper, which I think they still do. You get a newspaper, you see the auctions. I would go back to the office, open up White Pages because it was free, and I would check the property to see if it had equity. I'd call the homeowner and I'd say, hey, and I got a few listings like that for sale by owners. It was tough, but every commission check I was like, all right, I got 2 more months of breathing.
It kept you in. It kept you in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I know exactly how you, dude, it's so funny hearing you because we were in the same boat at that time.
Yeah.
Like it was like the one check that came in, all right, man, this is gonna last like 2 more months. Minimum payments are gonna be made. Like it's all good, no worries. That was crazy, man, to think about that and to especially seeing how things are now between us. Like, man, I'm really proud. Obviously, I'm really proud of everything you did. You tell me who this is, what it means to you, and just it's a story.
Okay. Man, that's a sexy photo.
Yes. Hey, sorry,
Ed.
Ed, I'm sorry, bro. I'm sorry. If you watch this, I'm really sorry. I wish I had a better picture. It's a little pixelated, but you probably can't tell from that distance. How'd you meet Ed? How did you meet Ed?
How did I meet Ed? I met Ed, so when I was working at Safeway, I was going to MJC to get my principles and practices. So I was taking those classes, and the teacher of one of those classes, Andrea, who later passed when we went to Almond Valley, from cancer, rest in peace, she brought Ed, her broker. So Ed was her broker for Almond Valley Realty, and he came and he spoke on a presentation about dual agency. I remember that to this day, he had this funky presentation that he presented, and it was like this guy on a tightrope, and he's like, it's very risky doing dual agency. He's very just by the book. And something about Ed I resonated with in that class, because he says, I do free trainings every Monday at my office. We go through the contracts, I train you guys, and something about him seemed very genuine.
Yeah.
And I resonated with him. I even told him, like, even to this, if I saw him today, I would remind him, like, he really helped me. So I remember showing up to his office one Monday when I wasn't working at Safeway, because Mondays were my day off. So I show up to his office, I show up an hour late or something, they're about to wrap up the sale. And it's just him and one guy by the name of Eric sitting in the conference room. I'm thinking I'm walking into this huge meeting with all these people.
Because he has such a large space too.
Yeah, and remember that projector he had?
Yeah.
So he ended up, I came in there late, and he just said, all right, let's get started. And his training is by far probably the best training there is out there. He still trains with HomeSmart, which got absorbed Almond Valley. But yeah, he got us involved. He got us both.
No, it was 100%.
So I'm going to include you.
Everything you say, Marcus, is 100% true. Ed laid the foundation for everything of how I am with my transactions. Transactions are still, like how they operate, still the same. There's a basis to them. He provided that foundation. I just added on top of it, but always reminded of the things he said. Make sure you look at this. Make sure you go about it this way. He instilled a sense of fear, but like more of a, hey, be aware that this could happen. And it was because of him that I got so good at playing scenarios out. Like every time I do a transaction deal, my method is play every scenario possible that could happen. And to my clients, I play that same scenario to them. So we're aware of anything and everything that could happen. And a lot of that is with Ed, because we'd role play, and me being the fucker that I am, I always would toss random shit out there. Yeah. I would put random scenarios out there, and it just stuck with me, and it always reminded me of those days when we would practice and we'd go through that. But yeah, no.
I remember Ed saying, he's like, California is an active state, not a passive state. Everything has to be contractually written, otherwise everything he says is just sticking and ringing in my ear. Contingency dates. What does he talk about? Mediation before arbitration. He really brought the foundations, like you said, of what we do in our everyday contracts. But I remember the first thing that Ed ever helped me with, I remember I got like 2 listings. I think I'm super busy, and I'm getting calls here and there, and I'm doing my own file, and he remembered the sticky notes he would leave on the
Oh,
files.
I remember the sticky notes.
So every single file we had, you know, we were doing our own, getting our disclosures, and I'm terrible at file keeping, and I don't do that well at all. I suck at it. And he knew. He's like, yeah, every file that I had like 20 stickies. And so he says, you know what you should do is you should hire a TC. He says, you should talk to Misty. Talk to Misty and see. And that was the best hire. Misty still works with our flips and everything that we do now. Mm-hmm. She's still on our years later. Yeah. And she's like my real estate godmother. That's how I think of her, because she is just like Ed. Yeah. She is totally by the book. But Ed, not only the contract stuff, he got us involved in YPN. You know, he was like, I was yearning for something like leadership. Part of it was attention. I just wanted to get more attention. I want to feel like I'm a part of something bigger. I remember going to a CVAR, and I tell Ed I went to this YPN thing, and then he's like, well, they're not our association, we're LAR. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know how Ed is not the type of guy to tell you how involved he is. He was so involved in leadership. Yeah. Even though he had a small brokerage of like 25 agents, he was very high level in the local association, the state association, and the national association. But he would never tell you. Yeah. And so he was like, if you're looking for leadership, maybe, and that's when he got us in touch with the president of LAR. I think it was, what's his name?
I honestly.
Not Dwight. His name's not Dwight, but he passed away. Yeah. And so, but anyways, Ed's like, you should get into YPN, the Young Professionals Network. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I'm going to be the chair of it. I want you guys to be on the committee. Mm-hmm. He got me, you, and Isabel. Yeah. Isabel was there at the time. And there was another guy too that ended up going to property management. What was his name?
He wasn't there long.
He had glasses, always wore pea coats.
Yeah, but he wasn't there long.
He wasn't there long. He went to property management. No, but so we all got involved in YPN. Isabel, being a single mom, she ended up stepping away from real estate, and she did, but me and you stuck around, and we met people. We went to all these things, legislative day in Sacramento. Yeah. I don't know what half this stuff is.
That being involved with YPN kind of opened my eyes. It was a small opening for me, but it made me realize there's so much more to real estate than I'm actually aware of.
Yeah, you're the realtor's realtor.
Marcus.
He wanted to be the drone guy. Taking photos.
This interview's not about me, Marcus.
All right. Okay. But it opens your eyes to like. Yeah. Part of it was Ed pitched it to like, you're gonna get your name out there. You're gonna get referrals, because he knew like I was all about business. But I also like leadership, and he's like, well, you can meet other lenders, other people that can get you source of referrals, and so he kind of knows how to cater to you. Yeah. But without that, YPN, and then really liking what I was doing in YPN, like going out to conferences and meeting other realtors, I got so involved. I kind of stuck around. I think you might have left the second year or something like that. You stepped away.
I stepped away for a bit.
Yeah. And so I just kept doing it because whatever Ed told me to do, I said, sure. Got me into football reffing with him.
Yeah. Oh, no,
I drank the Kool-Aid, dude.
Yeah, you definitely drank. You took everything and anything, bro. That was the one thing. It's like, it got tossed at you, bro.
I did solar.
Bro, solar, the football thing. You just started, I'm telling you, any opportunity that came your way, you just ran with it, which is great, I thought, to be quite. I was a little weirded out by some of it. I was like, why are you spending time on this? But I get it. You were looking for something, and it was always a search. And just like me, I mean, when I did the drone stuff and everything, I was looking for something. It was probing and trying to find my place in all this. And it's hard when things, you don't have success and you start dabbling in a few things. But the way I always look at it, dude, I just added a tool into my toolbox. I don't know when I'll ever use that tool, but I hope to have it the day that opportunity comes my way.
Yeah. It's just, you're increasing your worth by. It's not a class. It's not a degree. It's just like the contracts, because having that basis of knowledge and all those tools, you never know when you may need it.
No, that's true.
And so Ed, I remember even like when he paid us our commission checks, I remember having to sit in front of him, or no, Nancy in the other office. They had that old check thing. She would
slice and dice
the check. I'd be like, all right, and then I go to the bank immediately.
Oh yeah, 100% had to get that money in there ASAP.
Yeah, dude.
No, dude, that was a good time. So
Ed, I got so involved with Ed, I ended up going. I was on the CAR board of directors of California. He ended up recommending me for the Rising Star Award. He really helped put me out there.
Yeah, I know.
And he recommended me, and I got that.
You were 30
thought
under 30?
I don't think I did that.
No.
he recommended me for all of that stuff, and then even the board of directors for LAR.
Yeah.
So I got voted on with Juan.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, that's
Juan
right.
Vargas, he was also on there too. So, but
No,
yeah.
Ed,
So shout out to Ed.
And 100%, Ed, you did more for us than you'll ever know.
A lot of the flips and stuff that I get, people know me from those days. They're like, I remember realtors, like we put offers in a couple properties today.
Yeah.
And some of the realtors that were like, yeah, I know, you were Marcus? Yeah, I know Marcus from CAR. We went to the blah, blah, blah. So it's just, he helped me tremendously.
Yeah, no, 100%. Not without a shadow of a doubt.
All right, what's the next?
All right, Marcus, I'm going to show you the next one. The next one's, I'll never forget. I love this one because I keep it in my emails. I have never deleted this. I still have the same email, the Realtor at Roberto JG. I don't use it anymore, but I keep it because there's a lot of memories in there. I'll be honest, I don't think I ever deleted
Is it you with the yellow background?
I use it at that time too. No, but okay. This, Marcus, is I think when you started to think of like branding and about yourself and everything. So I love this because I'll never forget. You just remind me of a sous chef.
Yeah, I was gonna think about that.
So
Look at that.
This is when Marcus first started thinking about branding. Like, man, this has got to look a certain way and everything. This was his email signature when he first started, and this is when I believe a little bit afterwards I left. So this is where the gap between us starts to come because I ended up leaving and you stayed in there. But that's the part I want to hear is how did this start? This is the start of the machine in my mind. How did this happen? What did you do to start really get rolling even at Almond Valley?
Man, that picture's funny. Everyone made fun of me about that picture.
I said you
I went to JCPenney.
Yeah, dude, I said that you sold colognes in the back of a car with that picture.
And so my first year in real estate, I made like $40K. I started in July. It was half the year. I think I got like 4 deals. And then I think you left shortly. Maybe you left the following year. I think I started picking up steam when my son's mom said she's pregnant. She got me a gift on Christmas. It was a positive pregnancy test.
Yeah.
And I think I went into full workhorse mode, which was like, now it's another survival. Like I gotta buy a house. And I remember I had this 90-day goal journal, which was, I wrote these couple things down, which was I wanted my credit score to be at a certain credit, like 750. I want to make at least 100,000. I want to buy my first home, and I want to do this and do this and do this. But and so those 3 I was focused on, and so I started. I don't know how I got all that business, but I started cold calling. I took pictures like that and put them on my signature, and I got RedX the dialer, and I would circle prospect. I would call sellers. I would send mailers to every seller I spoke to. And I remember going every day. And Ed really helped me with the goal sheet. Remember that goal sheet we had?
I remember the goal sheet.
And he's like, okay, in order for you to make this much money, Marcus, 100,000, what is your listing? How many phone calls? How many listing appointments? How many buyers? You want to work with buyers or sellers? I'm like, I'll take anything. He's like, all right. So how many listing appointments? How many of those will convert? What's the average commission in your county? Because Ed would have those monthly meetings where he'd go over the data, Metro List, and our stuff on the MLS, the multiple listing service. So I really want to make $100,000.
That was always the goal. I remember he would just write that on there, $100,000, and
affirmations.
And you'd have to figure out like, okay, what do I have to do to get to that point? It was actually really good to put a number up there rather than saying like you got to reach, because you have to fit. It wasn't like, oh, you have to do this many transactions. You just have to figure out how to get this process started. I like to call it you need to figure out there's a system here, but you need to flow water through it. How do I get water in there?
And that's where RedX came in. I have to get a dialer. I started just trying to get as much. And I just knew, I'm like, if I make 300 calls a day, if I talk with 10, 15 people, I can get at least 2 listing appointments. We went on some of them. Remember the FISBO we went on?
Oh,
we tried to get that guy to list with us for sale by owner.
We were there for like an hour.
Yeah, he was just tire kicking. He ended up listing with some other agent. So I was spinning my wheels, just trying everything I can, and I did it. I did it at the end of the year.
No, I remember when I came back to visit a couple times. Dude, this man was just standing in his desk, in his office, pacing back and forth with a headset on.
Yeah, we had that black headset.
You got the headset on.
$15 Best Buy.
You were just bang, 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 bang. So did you? At what point did you feel like, damn, I kind of made a little bit of success right there at Almond Valley? Like, what was that point for you?
When I reached the top sales agent in the office, Ed would have those ceremonies at Olive Garden, and he'd have his AVR, which I still
Shout
have
out to
them.
Olive Garden.
I still have them. Olive Garden, it was the best. We had the whole room. We had like whatever we selected, some kind of wine.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I remember.
But dude, I remember
it was nice though.
It was so cool.
Yeah.
And I feel like we should, that's something I probably should do for my office here. I remember that I got top sales agent. I made Masters Club because I kept tracking. I had the tracker every closing. I would track how close am I to the minimum amount you need to get on Masters Club, because that was like the pinnacle of success. If I make Masters Club, and I was like, was so obsessed with my age, being like in my early 20s at the time, and I was so gung ho about not having a college degree and all that crap. I was just posting about everything. I remember I was Mr. Motivational. I was posting quotes every day on my Instagram about just any guy that you could think of that's in real estate, that's like getting up at 5 a.m. They have to post their workout, post a picture, post a motivational quote, I'm the first one to the office, last one at the, I was doing all of that.
Yeah.
So I really stuck to that, for sure.
100%. I remember. I'll never forget. Yeah, I remember all those days.
It's probably pretty obnoxious, to be honest, but I mean, some people liked it.
Dude, you need you need something though. Like, and it's funny. Like I said, I was telling you before all this happened. Every person I've interviewed so far, just some of us create villains in our own mind. People think they're talking shit about us. Like, it motivates us. You need something to get you going. It's not easy to get up in the day and to try to take on everything and try to keep growing on top of that and scaling it. It's not an easy thing to do. So, what were your top numbers at Almond Valley? What were your numbers like?
I know that I was upset because Misty was still the top listing agent, even though I was the top sales agent. I'm like, who cares if it's listings or buyers? Why she got to be the top something? I was real upset about that. And I was like, I think in 1 year I did just under 10 million in sales volume.
Yeah. And
so that was when I started transitioning into wholesaling, because my goal was to make 250,000. So I was like, all right, 100K is old news, now $250,000.
Yeah.
And right when I was starting to start transitioning to like, all right, I need to get a team. And I made my son's mom get her license.
Oh, yeah,
and she was on my team, and I'm like, all right, we're gonna be the Bazan Real Estate Group. Yep. So I went from Marcus Bazan to the Bazan Real Estate Group. Of course, I have to use my last name, and I tell her she's got to be like my assistant. It was horrible, man. She's like, I can't read your mind. You want me to do all these things, and then I don't do it on your time frame, and you go do it. It was causing a lot of issues between us. Yeah. That's when I learned about wholesaling. I was on Instagram, and then someone had reposted this guy who was 18.
Yeah.
He was 18 at the time. He was in Phoenix, Arizona. His name's Alex, and he had posted about making 7 figures in wholesaling. Yeah. I don't know what wholesaling was. And so there was some envious, I'm like, who's this 18-year-old making 6 figures and I'm 22, 23? Who is this 18-year-old making 7 figures? And immediately I went to his profile. I connected with him. He's pretty cool. Yeah. Like, his story seemed genuine, and I paid a couple grand, flew out to Arizona. Like, the next month they had an event, and I learned what wholesaling was. And then I came back fully strung out on, all right, I'm switching everything over to wholesaling now. I just learned so much. I did VIP, toured their office, similar to this office, but they had a ton of sales guys. We only have, most of them are virtual, but we have 2 sales guys. That's when I got into wholesaling.
Yeah.
So
it kind of just led you to that. All right, so this leads me into my next picture then. Who is this? What does he mean to you? And tell me the story behind how this all came to be.
Oh, Mo, yeah. So Mo, he was just here. I remember when I got into wholesaling in 2019, my son's mom and I had just split up. I was going through a rough time, and I had stepped away from all my leadership committees, just getting into getting into recovery, getting into therapy, all these stuff. And I stepped away from all my leadership stuff, stepped away from reffing, just completely deleted all my social medias, and I just dedicated myself to working on myself, but also wholesaling was the last thing that I had started. Yeah. And I had gotten a deal from it before I stepped back. And so I decided then and there I was going to just do wholesaling and focus on that 100%. What I did was I flew to Arizona like I talked about, and then a couple months later there was another event. The next month I went down to Southern California for another event, and I did VIP. And that's when I met Mo. Mo was at the rooftop. We were at this mixer, and Mo was standing there. We were trying to find people to talk to. You know, we're both new. We're like, I don't know. And so I'm like, hey, what's up? I was like, where are you from? He's like, I'm from Lathrop. I'm like, no shit. I'm from Hickman. He goes, where's Hickman? I said, it's like, think of like Ceres. He goes, where's Ceres? I'm like, Modesto. He's like, oh, okay. And so I'm like, yeah, dude, I just bought all this stuff. I bought all these things. I'm like, let me send you all of it for free. I'll share everything with you. And so we just provided value. We connected. And then he probably wasn't thinking twice about it, but he called me maybe a week after the event. He's like, hey, I got this deal in Waterford. I'm like, dude, that's around the corner from my house. I live in Hickman. Right. He goes, can you help me sell it? And I didn't have any buyers. I'm like, I just sold one deal so far. And I'm like, yeah, sure. We met there. We wholesaled that deal. We made less than $5,000. And he used, it was a broker that sold. The house was leaning. The house was empty, vacant. It was a broker who laughed at his contract, this old broker that lives in Waterford. And the broker's like, we're going to use our CAR contract. So he wrote up a wholesale deal on the CAR contract, which was really wonky. And I'm like, I don't think we're going to sign this, bro. And I'm like, the house is leaning, like the foundation is like this. And it was leaning, and I called all my cash buyers. I'm like, let's try to sell it. And none of them wanted it. I ended up shooting it on my system. I text blasted it. And we ended up selling it miraculously, like 5 people there was a wholesaler, a realtor, me and Mo, and the guy who bought it, we made like $3-4 grand. And then me and him had another, he's like, I have another deal. And we just kept working together. And we went to Javi's, a Mexican restaurant here, to have lunch. And I was like, man, you're paying like $5,000 a month for all your stuff. I'm paying like $5,000 a month. Like, why don't we just partner up? Like and he's like, yeah. He's really like trusting. He's really
Mo is definitely very positive and very just like, yeah, I'll go. Let's go with the flow. Let's keep moving forward. That's what he feels like to me.
And his wife doesn't like that. His wife is like, she's the opposite. She's like, because I would not hear about her, but she would like always be the one to like have the, you know, like conservative. He's trustworthy. She's not so much, you know. So we partnered right then and there, and then we had closed some deals, and COVID hit. That's when COVID hit, and so then we were like, what are we gonna do? I ended up getting this random deal from a guy in Riverbank. A realtor brought it to me, Matt, a realtor that we know. And we wholesaled it and made like 30-40 grand. We made a lot of money. That was the biggest check. And then we just kept getting together. Me and him would meet at a Starbucks, get our laptops out. We would pull the list. You know, we had 1 VA, 2 VAs. We were just trying to just do anything we can to make some money. Yeah. That's kind of how we met and how we kind of got started to where we're at now.
This point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. To see, dude, when I remember when you were first doing it, we did a wholesale deal together. Remember the Oakland one?
We did an Oakland deal. Yeah, that's right. I mean, like 6,000. Hey, bro. Crazy. But the guy, like, remember something happened with the guy buying it? He was out of the country.
No, that was another one before it actually sold the other. We did it twice. No, remember, I remember I was on vacation, and then you texted me, he's like, hey, he's trying to sue us. I'll never forget, that was the first time I was ever like, when I hear about wholesale, I hear about a lot of lawsuits that happen.
Oh, the guy in Oakland.
Yeah. He was starting to sue either you or
I almost quit because of that deal.
Oh, dude, I remember you texting me in the middle of the night. It's like, yeah, man, I'm not sure what to do in this scenario.
Dude, so I came back from Arizona. My contracts were Arizona contracts I was trying to use here in California. And the first guy, I get some random deal locked up in Oakland. I drive straight to the house. The only person I know that has buyers in Oakland is Alberto. I call Alberto. I'm like, hey, got this deal. Like, you have any buyers? Like, bring me a buyer. And he's like, yeah, I got this guy. And it was turns out to be a fake buyer. What he did, he locked it up, and he's like,
hold on a second. I bet my guy is now. Hold on a second.
He's not a real buyer. That guy, dude. So he was like some Indian guy. I don't know who he was.
Oh yeah,
that guy.
I forgot about that.
You didn't really know him.
Mm-hmm. But somebody referred over. I forget how it works. It was a chain of emails that happened.
Yeah. So then it was kind of like a wholesaler, undercover wholesaler. Who
they were trying to just JV on it. Basically,
no, he didn't try JVing. What he did was I gave it to him at a certain price, and he tried to sell it for a higher price. Yeah. And I learned about that because people from Southern California would call me and say, "Hey, my contract to him was like $450. I had it under contract for like $420. So I was gonna make $30,000. I'm like, this is huge. It's my biggest deal ever." And he ended up not putting the EMD in. I ended up telling him, hey, what's going on? He's like, no, don't worry about it. He just kept trying to act like he knew what he was doing. And then I said, dude, I have another buyer. I'm going to sell it to you. You don't have your EMD in. You're not performing. He didn't want to let go. He goes, I'll sue you. He put me on an email chain with his attorney.
Yeah, I remember that.
And had his partner, some Chinese lady, call me. And I was like doing my regular retail deals, like at open houses. I'm like on the phone with them. I'm like, she goes, well, look, this is what we can do. We can either sue you or do. And I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, and I just kept my cool. But anyways, it ended up being all BS.
Yeah.
And the seller, actually, that deal fell apart because the seller was impersonating his dad. It was Junior trying to sell. That whole deal was a mess.
Yeah.
But that was one of my first deals, and I'm like, fuck this wholesaling stuff. This stuff is crazy.
Dude, no, I know. I just remember that night where I'm just like, fuck, what did I just get myself into trying to do this with Marcus? Luckily, we ended up doing another wholesale deal. 88. That one went through. That went through, but that one was funny.
The guy was like in Mexico. Remember?
Yeah. So okay, hold on a second. My buyer got deported years ago, but he still owned a lot of property here. Okay, so let's hold on a second.
So the seller got deported, didn't he?
Yeah, the seller got deported, but this was before.
He had to go to the embassy.
Yeah, he went to the embassy to sign his paperwork. Yeah, bro, I had to sell the fourplex just a couple blocks away too. Yeah. He had a bunch of properties. Hold on a second. It's a great client of mine, still selling properties.
It wasn't who I think it is. The guy in Ripon.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, my bad.
That's his dad.
My bad. Yeah.
Okay. He knows.
No, he's cool. He's cool.
He's awesome. Yeah,
but I just remember how crazy these deals were.
Yeah.
Sellers, they're like, he has to go to the U.S. embassy in Mexico. We have to meet him over there, and there was something with the paperwork that was.
You had to verify everything and then translate it all. Yeah, no, it was a whole ordeal. It was a whole ordeal, and I remember I got like $3,500 or $2,500 out of the whole piece because there was 4 JVs that happened on that everybody just chopped the money down to pieces, and I'm just thinking to myself, well, at least I did what I need because my whole goal was just I needed to get it sold, and a regular real estate transaction wasn't working. That one needed to go to wholesale.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of people always wonder, it's like, why would you wholesale? Why would you just, people don't understand that not everything can be sold on the regular market.
Sure.
It needs a different type of buyer. It needs a different type of process. It's not this straightforward thing, man. It's really not, especially when you involve tenants and cloud on titles and just like, it just gets pretty intense. But keep going. So where did you start kind of getting traction with Mo with this wholesale thing? Because obviously, you guys are piecing deals together here and there. Because at my time, Marcus, when we met, we talked together at that point, I'm still trying to get my career kind of going a little bit. I'm getting a little traction here and there. So when I saw your deal happen, I'll be honest, I was like, man, this is kind of like shit. Like, you gotta split it. So many people could jump on your deal and you gotta break that thing apart like crazy. Like, yeah, the spread could be 30,000, but by the time you get your piece, that shit turned into 3,000 real fast. So to me, I was like, that's why I was never like, wholesale is not my thing, but I knew like if I had something in the scenario, you'd be the guy. So how did it start to build up? When did you start kind of really, clicking on that in that deal?
2020, I think. 2019, I got my first few deals. It's almost like my real estate journey. I made $40K on my first year in real estate. So I made less than $50K doing wholesaling my first year. And then when me and Mo met, started partnering up, I think together we did about $360,000 in assignment fees, 2020. 2021, we're still a two-man team with a couple VAs. We do about 700 and something thousand. And then 2022 last year when we got the office, the staff, we did about 1.2 million. So we just kept building from there. So getting our marketing, joining mentorships and masterminds.
So for those that don't know, that 1.2 million, the people might think that's total sales volume. No, what is that?
That's assignment fees. That is the equivalent of if you did about, I don't know, what is that?
Maybe about $50 million in commission, maybe 2.5%, give or take.
50 million?
Yeah, because it's 2.5. If you did 100 million, you get 2.5 million. So you did. So you did basically in regular realtor terms, it would be $50 million in deals. But you did it in how many transactions?
I don't know. I think we did less than 30.
Less than 30.
So, but just me and him building it. I think a big part of our success too was just getting into masterminds. He was the one. Again, I'm the conservative. He's the one who's like more visionary. He's like, I think we should fly to Florida and join this mastermind out there. And I'm like, why are we going to Florida? Like who? He goes, well, he's the guy that's on Instagram just watching everything and he's following all the guys and he's like, this guy's got this REI SIF thing. I think we should do it. And I'm like, all right, it's like $6,000. Okay, let's fly.
I remember you tell me if I'm wrong, but you told me at the time, I don't know now, at the time you had spent about $150,000 in masterminds for all, like to travel and to do all this stuff. That shit blew me the fuck away. Not because I thought at the time, man, this is ludicrous. Like, he's spending so much money, especially in a world where we live so virtual and everything is like, why would you do that? Looking, I think this is maybe about a year and a half, 2 years. Now, Marcus, I see it. I'm like, you invested in yourself, and it was one of the most impressive things I had ever seen in anybody in real estate, because you literally changed your way of thinking, the way you, from the guy that couldn't, shut up to close a deal, to what you were doing. You changed everything about yourself, the way you thought, the way you spoke, likability. I remember you reading all these books of self-improvement and things like that. Bro, it was, I tell people all the time, like when I talk about you, it's like, dude, you don't understand, this man changed who he was in order to be successful in this field, and he threw money at it, but in a very strategic way. So kudos to you, man, for that. That shit.
And that was a big part of Mo.
Yeah.
Mo was
good thing he was there to push you to do it, man.
And I think the most we've spent on a single, we got screwed too. I won't say names, but the Southern California one we went to, that guy had his own little mastermind. He's a good sales guy. It was a whole sales conference. So he pitched us on a $25,000 mastermind, and that's when COVID hit. So during COVID, he's like, yeah, we're gonna go to Miami, go to Mexico, go here. And there was other people, which we know on social media, they follow me, I follow them, they're big too. They all blew up. We all paid $25K each. And he never came back, like he never tried to restart it when COVID hit, took the money and ran. So it was a convenient, it wasn't, I don't think it was purposeful, at least like it was intentioned, but it was like, well, this is a good exit for me. And so that we lost money there, I'm like, damn. But we have joined some mastermind, we paid up to $25K, and never in my life would I think I would pay that much. Because in real estate here in the Valley, like people have like a coach, they might pay $1,000 or $2,000 for a coach, like a life coach, really. Just like, what are you doing today? How many calls you make? Kind of like a Keller Williams style.
The way when you told it to me, I didn't think much of it, but the way I look at it now, and tell me if I'm wrong, is for me, you're buying access. Not just information to people's networks.
Yeah, a lot of the things that we know now, like the guys that we got started with, like one guy we get all of our data from, and we get it such a cheap price. And he came into a mastermind of ours as a debt collection. He owns a debt collection company that does 7 figures a year. And he's like, we're like, well, how do you get the phone numbers? He's like, well, we just use a TLO, which is like credit bureau data. He has access to that. Pays like $70 grand a year. And he's like, I get it I pay $70 grand, but I get all the data for free. And we're like, can you give us the phone numbers of all those people? He's like, yeah, I'll just charge you, I don't know, what's half of whatever rate is 7, okay, we'll charge you, so much cents. And I'm like, all right. So that was just a mastermind connection. So you're getting access to people that are doing deals, people that when we get together, like they'll change the way I think about our marketing, like what's working for you in Georgia. I have buddies all over the country, in Tennessee, Georgia. And so getting access to them, getting access to the knowledge, because a lot of the things that we do today, like creative finance, wraps, flips, we had to kind of learn. I've kind of seen that as a cheat code now. I might pay $25K now, but my thinking and most thinking is like, when we close one deal, it's paid for, and then boom, now we implement it to our whole company. And that's what I feel confident having people come into my mentorship, because hey, you don't have to pay $150,000 for a mastermind or a mentorship. I'm charging substantially less than that to people that are in my position I was when I was at Almond Valley. You know what I mean?
No, 100%, and I'm with that, because a lot of people will hear those kind of numbers and it's unaffordable, it's unattainable. You know what I mean? So it's like, how to create an access point for you? That's a great thing, honestly. I think that's pretty impressive. Because you just had a meeting recently, right? You just had an event here in Modesto.
Yeah, we had them. I think the other thing too is social media and personal branding. That's the other thing too, is like the event we had with Dean, Strat, and Jason. They're big in Fresno. They wouldn't have thought of us as somebody that they can do an event with if we didn't have the branding, which one of our mentors told us, you guys want to have private money to fund your flips, you got to start posting your content. And at that time, I told you before, I was off social media. So it was my mentor that said, you need to get back on social media. And I was hesitant. I told Mo, I'm like, I don't think I'm ready, dude. I don't want to get on. And he's like, just do it. He's like, you're the one that is better at speaking and this. So we know each other's skills. He doesn't want to be in front of the camera. So I'm like, all right, we got on in 2021. And that's when I just started documenting. And I've gotten so much connections from social media that meetup wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for social media.
Absolutely.
Private blenders we have now, people I know that lend me Some of them I went golfing with recently, you know, he wants to lend a couple $100,000. He wants to private lend on our properties. Yeah. And I didn't intentionally want to go golf. I just said, hey, let's go golfing. Yeah. We followed each other. So it's big for sure.
So I want you to tell me who this is and, you know, what they mean to you and what they mean to you, not only just in a personal sense. You know, actually, let me start this a little bit differently. I'll never forget when you told me, when we met up again after it had been a while since we had spoken, and you were like, you know, Alberto, now I don't work Fridays. Like, you just said a separation of life and work. Oh, you made, I remember before, Marcus, it was like, no, gun-ho.
I bring them with me.
24/7, you know, fucking day and night. It didn't matter the time, like work. And then something snapped. And I'll never forget when you told me, it's like, no, Alberto, I don't work on Fridays. And the weekends I don't work either. He goes, it's Monday through Thursday, but Fridays no more. And I just remember saying, like, awesome, man. I'm glad that you were able to see life in a different way and appreciate it a little bit more, even at your age. You know what I mean? You're 6 years my younger, I believe, if I remember right. So 7, man, okay, chill, Mark. Months, man. So tell me.
Oh, my son, dude. Yeah, that's not my car. Mo rented that for me on my birthday because he knows I want to buy it. But regardless of the car, that's my son. I go for the car instantly, like, hey, it's not my car, full disclaimer. Hey. But no, he is my son, full disclaimer. No, yeah, he's the joy of my life, man. I think a lot of the fear I had getting into real estate, becoming a father, being a single father, finally hitting a bottom when Cecilia left me, and just everywhere I was at. I mean, I was doing well real estate wise, but I was not doing well in any other sense. And so being a single father, I remember I just didn't want to lose my son. I saw my life heading down a path where it was going to end up like my childhood, where it was going to be domestic violence, showing up, the jealous ex, just all these things, and losing custody of my son. And so I really decided at that point, not only with wholesaling and my business, but working on myself. And so growing emotionally and spiritually, and going back to church and all these other things, along with therapy and recovery, it really helped me, especially with wholesaling, because we would close one deal, make 40 grand, and you know, I would kind of coast along to the next one. Yeah. So having that space where I could do it, wholesaling really allowed me the time to work on myself. And that's why I'm grateful about what I do. Yeah. So like everywhere you went into commercial, you had to leave at a certain point in Almond Valley. I left. I never left Almond Valley. They went to HomeSmart, but I went into wholesaling. Yeah. And so my son is the biggest, I would say, motivation. You know, I think me and his mom are really good friends today. We'll go to games together. We went to Disneyland together last year. She was, you know, she's with somebody. She's very happy, you know, and so I really had to grow through that. But I remember when he first was born, we had split up when he was about to turn 1. He would come with me everywhere on the real estate stuff. Yeah, he would come with me and still to this day, he'd come, not as much, but now I think my biggest motivation is I just want freedom, which I have today, but I have more businesses I'm building. But those 3 days are non-negotiable, like you said, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Even the company, we have our team meeting. I mean, we work till 5 now with everything we do now. But me and Mo, like, you know, Saturday, Sunday, like he doesn't take calls, I don't take calls, unless it's something important. Yeah. But going to my son, having a rhythm with my son, his T-ball, his life is getting, as he gets older, his life gets more filled, activities, we travel, and I have the ability to do that now. And I really just want to build memories with him. So I think that's the biggest, growing my relationship with my dad, my mom, and having them a part of his life is important. So I think that is one of the biggest, you know, a lot of people talk about, you know, parenthood is the number one thing. And so for me, it's really my relationship with God comes first. My relationship with my son is second. You know, people put their kids above God, and he's not. But for me to work on myself and to try to strive towards those godly ideals and principles, that makes me a better father. Yeah. And so it's hard as a parent. There's a lot of things that come up as he's a toddler. He starts getting his own personality. I have so many friends. I have more conversation on the phones with friends and mentors in my recovery space that I talk about him. I talk about what's really going on, because if you're not fixing what's going on at home, what's going on inside of you, it's going to portray outward to your business. And we were just talking about it offline, about ego and this and that. Really, it's fear at the end of it. Fear and pain And so dealing with that stuff, working on myself, I think that is what demonstrates a real leader.
Yeah.
You know, so being a business owner, having a team, having employees. Like I told you before, my brother, I was an asshole to my employees. I micromanaged them, stepped on their toes, made sure they knew it, would play the same thing. I'm the boss and you're not. And I was even like that as a realtor. You know, I was really ego driven. But as a father now, I think a lot of my memories as a child that I maybe didn't have, I relive them through my son. Yeah. And so that's important. I mean, people that don't have children, when you do, and you were there, I remember, man, I was so scared. Part of my family is like, we're very separated. There's a lot of drug addiction and alcoholism in my family. And I'm not really close with my family, like my external family. And as a Mexican, that's pretty shameful because most Mexican families are super close.
Yeah, it's a close knit.
And so I remember, dude, everyone that came to my baby shower, you were one of them. And Misty was there. I think Ed and them were there. I only had a few people. I didn't have much friends, dude. Yeah. So work in business can really consume your life. Yeah. But you were one of them, dude. You showed up there with your girlfriend. You guys came to my baby shower at the Las Casuelas in Turtle Rock. Yep. And, you know, that is what I'm, you know, building my son, because I have to get out there and, you know, other parents, I don't care about business or like who's a client. It's like, I'm more concerned with like, okay, my son needs to have a social life. Like, who can I that's where me and Mo's a father. Yeah. He's involved in his kid's life. He is a real role model to me because he's coaching his kid's basketball game. Mm-hmm. He's taking his kids to jiu-jitsu. He's doing all these things. He's like riding bikes with them and taking them to swim. So while we're building our business, we just make that a complete boundary of like, this is family time, and now we're getting together every weekend and, you know, just having fun with the kids. Yeah. So I think that's important.
It's super important, man, because, you know, we live in such a world where everybody, especially with social media, is like you post, go. You know, everybody thinks it's 24/7 with the thing. Yeah. You know what I mean? The way I like to look at it, man, is as I always tell everybody, is like at the beginning you're always exchanging your time for money, but eventually you got to find a way to exchange your money for time. You know what I mean? That's very important in entrepreneurship life, I believe. Look, if you have certain goals and it require you to go hard 24/7, you know, you got to understand what you're getting yourself into and what the repercussions of that can be as well, and especially in personal life. And like, if you don't care, that's fine. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. Right. But if you have a concern for it and you're getting into entrepreneurship like us, like set that boundary. Be aware of that, because you could end up with all the successes in the world at the top of the mountain by yourself. Me and Mo it's like I call Mo my business wife. And so I mean, we have to have discussions. I can't make decisions without him. I have to, you know, and I used to do that with my brother. My brother would make all these unilateral decisions when we're in business together. It was his way or the highway. And that was my model. You know, he was kind of a legalized hustler, or not a legalized, he was just a street hustler. That's what my mentor is like. Your brother was a street, he didn't know anything about taxes, paid all our employees under the table. Me and Mo grow together, like taxes and rentals. I mean, we have everything split down the middle. You know, his wife is on our team. And so just being able to navigate through business, you can be very lonely in that, but being able to incorporate family, I don't know what it is about, I mean, I'm not gonna bag on realtors, anyone in any industry can do it, but you know, there's something about having, this is my personal profile on social media, here's my business profile. And you need to have both incorporated, because that's what people resonate with. You know, especially if you're in the service-based business, if you're selling a service to somebody who's, you know, or whatever, even if you're just a realtor selling, you know, trying to get clients for buying and selling retail real estate, you want to come off with someone that they can connect with. So you don't want to have business and personal separated, they should be incorporated. One of the things too is like, having him involved in the business, but not forcing him. That's the other thing too, as an entrepreneur, I see so many people, and I've even read a lot of books about entrepreneurs that force their kids to get in the business that they don't want to get into. So my son has his own creative process, whatever he decides he wants to get into, whether he wants to become a realtor, he wants to get involved in artistry, I don't know what he wants to be when he grows up, a cop, whatever he wants, I'm fully supportive of. I'm not telling him he needs to be like me, he needs to inherit the business. So I think that's one thing I'm straying away from. I just want him to find himself as far as his creative process. And you're speaking a lot of truth to what Cody always says. Cody preaches the people see through your bullshit, you know, or people don't resonate with like that page because it's just that like you're trying to push something on me rather than I want to learn about you. You just happen to do this thing, which could be very, you know, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So no, you're 100% right, I think, in that world. And some people love to have that separation. I think you touched upon it. I think it's a little bit of fear of them looking at them a certain way, or it's like, I don't want them to judge me and this and that, I understand that, but also it'll hold you back.
Yeah.
It'll definitely hold you back a little bit, man. But no, this is awesome. I'll be honest, interview aside and all that shit, Marcus, this is fucking tight to hear you say all these things and to have watched you grow this year from the time that we started, you become a father, successful business owner. Like, I'm proud of you, man. I'm 100% proud of you.
Thank you.
We'll definitely have more conversations like this just between us, but to get to wrapping of our interview, because we're in an interview.
Oh, yeah.
This is the last one, all right?
Okay. Picture of you.
It's
black.
It's black.
Uh-huh.
This is 5 years from now.
Uh-huh.
What do you see? What image am I showing you 5 years from now? It can be anything. It could be about your business, family. What do you see? What image, and the last piece of this interview, am I showing you?
I want to have, at least in every one of my companies that we're in right now, 6-figure employees. Because I know how important it was for me to hit six figures and make 100,000. And I know how important, although people may not talk about it, I know how important that is for them. I want to have a community of people that I can help achieve that same freedom, which I'm starting to get. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, we're making a lot of money. We're having more freedom, but we're still in the building sort of phase of our companies.
Yeah.
And so I want in 5 years, those companies to be established, but helping other people start their companies. Why is there fear about other people succeeding? Because that was what I was always dealing with as a realtor. I was so afraid of other people becoming successful, making more sales than me, or doing this. And now I'm at a point where I want to give back, and I want to build that community of people. And I want people to look at that and say, man, he really helped me pay, like some of my students right now. They're like, I really want to make enough money so I can buy my son a house in Virginia when he goes to college.
Yeah.
I want other people to reach those goals.
Yeah.
Because I know how important they were for me.
Yeah.
So you see a lot of traveling, and that's really it, man. Just doing what I love. I don't think my buddy jokes with me. His name's Andrew. He tells me all the time, he says, I don't think you're ever going to stop working. You're never going to stop building businesses. And so I think hopefully Shark Tank, Let's get hey, being one of those guys sitting down, yeah, I'll give you 20% equity, or I'll take 20% equity for $2 million,
Yeah.
So investing in other people, not only with mentorship and masterminds and all that stuff, but, companies, and really finding I don't even know what it is, but finding a real vision that can impact, because money's the way that you buy influence, right? And so I'm reading a book. I really love this book. It's How to Become a Billionaire, which seems cheesy, but a lot of the principles it talks about there is holding your equity, in all my companies, but also buying influence. Like, what do I, as a father, there's so many issues that I used to not care about. I don't even talk about any of these, like political opinions and all that. I wouldn't care. I don't vote, all this stuff. I'm like, but now as a business owner,
Influence is a thing.
Business owner, taxes, I really care about that, but let us set aside what my son is going to be going through in school and all these things. So there's so much things that I'm now having to face as a father because, school shooting, all the crazy stuff in the world. Yeah. And I'm like, I want enough influence to what can I impact? How can God use me in a way that I can impact and at least benefit some people, not only financially, but in a political way.
Yeah. I
don't want to be Elon Musk. I don't want to be those guys, but have a great impact.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, that sounds awesome.
So that's that 5-year picture.
There you go. Thanks for being on my interview, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Of course, dude. So I have a couple services. We offer a mentorship program. I'm the one that headlines it. Matuma's kind of the background, where I teach people, because I started as a realtor with Alberto, and we started from scratch to where we're at now as a 7-figure company. And like he said, I paid over $150,000 to be in masterminds, mentorships, one-on-ones, connect with people. So I'm offering that at a very, very low discount. This isn't an infomercial, I promise. And so I offer that to people that want to get started wholesaling. They want more freedom. They don't want to be doing dead open houses on the weekend like me and Alberto were doing. Dead open house after dead open house. And people have families. People like open houses. I'm not bagging on it. But more freedom and more money. Rather than making 3% commission on a $100,000 property, which is $3,000, you could make 70, 80, 90K as much as we have on deals. So I'm offering that mentorship. We also have a VA service. So if you're a realtor, you're a wholesaler, whatever company, you can usually outsource about 80% of whatever happens in your company. So delegation, we offer VA services where, just like my company's ran by many VAs, if you follow me on Instagram, then you'll see that our company is ran mainly by VAs. So the pay is very, very low compared to our standard of living here. They're still well paid over there. We offer VA services, and just follow me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is Marcus Bazan. It's _ Marcus Bazan, MarcusBazan. And I think that's it.
Yeah, it's good enough for me.
Yeah, man.